who do you think took out Jade Cargill?
Oh boy. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if it was Bailey. You never
Okay.
know.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling network on the planet.
Bonjour. You're watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. My name is TK Trinidad, and today we have an amazing show and, of course, nothing but amazing guests. He is one half of the best tag team ever, TNA Tag Team Champion, 18-time WWE Tag Team Champion, ECW Tag Team Champion, WWE Hall of Famer. Please welcome Devon Dudley. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fantastic. So I have a
Good.
very, very important question for you. What is the best part about being a girl dad?
About being a girl.
Dad.
Well, I got two girls.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've had five boys to start with. I got seven kids altogether. A
Mm-hmm.
lot, right? But people don't understand is when I tell them that number, they say, oh my God. But I'm like, I had all my kids when I was young. So I had the last three now. So all the other ones are grown, out on their own doing their thing. But it's a different ball game when you have girls. I didn't realize how really emotional women can be. No offense, but I'm just saying.
Okay.
Listen. You tell your boys to stop doing something or what have you. They go, okay, Dad. They know better. They stop. You tell the girls that the boo boo face comes on. They start hyperventilating and all. I just uh,
So pretty much they run the show. That's what's happening.
pretty much until my real name is Devon, and of
Mm-hmm.
course the wrestling name is Devon. So when I'm home, I'm Devon. But then when they get on my nerves, I become Devon real quick.
Uh-oh. So let's talk a little bit about your wrestling academy. So your wrestling school, it has been a pivotal part in training like the next generation. So what's your approach to training like future stars, especially the way wrestling is right now?
Well, a lot of it has to do, I feel, with respect. I think that's huge, especially with the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a time and place. I remember my parents used to always say, I'm a preacher's kid, so I was very strict in my household, and I couldn't even say the word dawn around my mother, let alone damn, and things like that. So, you know, I was always taught that level of respect. And then I went to the unpredictable Johnny Rogers School in Brooklyn, New York, at Gleason's Gym, and that was embedded in me even more,
Mm-hmm.
just simply because of the fact that he was an old school wrestler that came from the Bruno Sammartino era. So that was very, very big. And, me growing up, not only with my parents, but then with Johnny Rods, it just instilled the values of, in terms of the importance of just respecting those who have come before you. There's always a time and place to joke and play around, but when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
business, I was always taught you be serious and take care of business first, pleasure later. That's always how it should. That's how it should be. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people mess that up by doing the pleasure first and then the business later. If you're gonna have a successful business, you got to stop playing and do what you got to do for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like what I do with my family. I take care of business first in terms of with my family first, and then everything else is secondary. It took me a long time to learn how to do that, to put family first and business second in terms of the wrestling business, because you get caught up in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, my thing is we teach the value of respect at the wrestling school. We make sure that they know when new people come into the school, we make sure you introduce yourselves. You give them like a fist bump, just to say hello, okay, and just make sure you properly introduce yourself so they're not going around guessing who's what. Between that and then doing the fundamentals of pro wrestling, learning how to chain wrestle,
Mm-hmm.
learning from, number one, get your body in shape. We do it what we call ME training, which is cardiovascular and all of that put together. So we handle that first.
Mm-hmm.
Then we work on the fundamentals of footwork, things like that, and then we get you inside the ring and have you do what you have to do in terms of the entertainment value of pro wrestling, the flipping, the flying, the acrobats, and all of that. That's secondary, but you need the respect first. That's number one, and you need the fundamentals of the footwork and things like that. Chain wrestling, very, very important. And then the psychology, that's extremely important. How to put a match together, how to make sure that A goes with B, B goes with C, and so forth and so on. So we
Hmm.
make sure that everything is followed in that order. Because in order for you to have a successful student, you have to be able to have those things in order.
And so, like with everything that's going in now, especially with WWE and kind of a lot of athletes coming from like college and stuff like that, what would be your like advice? Because it's still the holy grail as far as wrestlers. Like, where do you want to go, WWE? So what do you think one WWE is looking for, and then what's your advice to people who want to become a WWE wrestler superstar?
Well, again, they're looking for pure athletes. That's what they want. They want athletes. And, forgive me for anybody who might be taking this the wrong way when I say this, but this is the truth. They're not looking for the average Joe Schmo on the street. Pro wrestlers have always been somebody that was bigger than life. It was somebody that, when we looked at it on TV, we didn't say, oh, we could do it, because now everybody and their mother thinks they can do it.
Mm,
And they find out real quick when they come to a reputable wrestling school that they can't, because it's not as easy as they thought it was. So we try to make sure, that in WWE that you come with all the backgrounds you need. That again, I can't stress it enough. The respect level is one. Have you ever done any organized sports? Are you disciplined enough to do what we're going to tell you to do? Are you able to do what we want you to do? And that's a big thing. So it's not like just somebody can just come off the street and do what we do, because if that's the case, we wouldn't be, we wouldn't be who we are today. We wouldn't be different from everybody else. You have a lot of MMA guys, football guys, basketball guys that come into the world of pro wrestling, and they all say when they start training, it's the toughest thing that they've ever had to put their body through. you
mm-hmm.
know Football, the impact was very hard, very real, but you hit for about 30 seconds, maybe less than that, then you break up, whistles blown, you go back to the huddle, you do it again. Wrestling is nonstop. We go nonstop. We're basically beating the hell out of each other within that whole 10, 15, 20 minutes that we're in that ring. And it takes a toll. And guess what? You're not only doing it Monday, but then you go and do it Tuesday, and then Wednesday, or Friday, or you do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's one of those things where it's different than any other organized sports that you could ever imagine. And that's what makes pro wrestling special.
I like it. So I mean, being part of, one of the best tag teams ever, just on Monday, we just saw New Day essentially become no longer. What's your thoughts on that?
When Bubba and I first came back in, it was an honor and a privilege to be able to work with the New Day. The New Day, basically, Xavier Woods was in TNA, before WWE, and
Hmm.
him and I had a great relationship then. We basically, ate bread together. We rode up and down the highways even sometimes, and there were times where TNA wasn't doing the right thing by him. And I'm not talking about the new regime of TNA. I'm talking about the old regime, the one that Dixie Carter had.
Hmm.
They weren't doing the right thing by him. They didn't see what WWE saw. And so they were messing around with him and basically not using him correctly. So I remember him calling me one day and he says, Devon, he's like, what do I do? I got an offer from WWE, but I'm still trying to get my degree in college, what I'm majoring in, and things like that. What do you
Hmm.
think I should do? I said, well, number one, forget about TNA because they don't care. I said, go do what you got to do with your diploma for college, so you have that to fall back on. And then if WWE is still calling, then go give it a tryout. And he was scared to do it. He didn't want to do it because we're all scared of the unknown.
Right.
We're comfortable with where we are, but to be uncomfortable to be somewhere else, we don't like it. And that's why some of us don't take chances. Well, he listened, he took that chance, and now boom, they're here,
Wow.
they've done what they've done. And he's always thanked me for that. He's gone on countless interviews and said, if it wasn't for Devon, I don't know if I would be here because of the advice that he gave me. Um, Working with those guys was very special. Again, I knew Xavier, but I didn't know Kofi and I didn't know Big E. And when I got to meet Kofi and Big E, it was like, wow, it was like a breath of fresh air. These guys are real cool. They were willing to learn from us. And I always look, I can't answer for Bubba, but the older generation is always looked upon as the old guys. The
Hmm.
young guys don't want nothing to do with these guys. These are the old guys. New Day didn't treat us like that. New Day, they were, eager to learn. They asked questions. They really, really, made it real comfortable for me and Bubba coming back in 2015 and not feel like an outsider or not
Hmm.
feel like the two old guys that came back to WWE, and we were able to hang with them. That was the great part about it, too. That was one of the things that I loved about it because we were able to show that even though at 44 and 45, we were still able to get in that ring and go and no question about it. And to be able to hang with the New Day, and then after the New Day was the Usos, and then after the Usos was the Wyatt family. It was
Hmm.
great. I loved working with those guys as well. It was a good time in 2015, going into 2016, coming back to WWE. So very proud of the New Day. Don't like what's going on right now, leaving Big E out, but it's they got these guys got to find themselves.
Did you think it was the right thing for them to do? I mean, he had an injury. Like, I think a lot of people shed a little tear. There was shock. Do you think that's the right play, or do you think there was a better solution?
Who's to know what's going to happen? Who's to know this ain't all a setup for somebody? You know,
Okay.
in terms of maybe these three are getting together to take out the bloodline. So we don't know. Maybe they want to make it look like that they're breaking up and they're ousting out Big E. And then all of a sudden Xavier and Kofi are in the ring and they're doing their thing. And next thing you know, here comes Big E for the rescue. Nobody ever sees it coming. So see, we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. So, is it the right thing to do? Yes and no.
Okay.
You gotta understand they've been going since 2015, and we're now in 2024. It's a long time for a tag team, for a trio to be like that, to be together for as long as
Yeah.
they have.
10
And they
years.
both come out as superstars in singles competition. So could it be possibility? But we won't know that until we see further on down the line what's going to happen.
Okay. Last kind of WWE question. Who do you think took out Jade Cargill?
Oh boy, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if it was Bailey. You never
Okay.
know. But listen, don't think Bailey is not above becoming a heel and doing heelish things to people. We've all
Okay.
seen it in the past. We've all seen things in the past where Bailey has come out mean and vicious. So who's to say that she didn't want to try to get that spot? We'll see what happens. Again, storyline, time will tell, and we'll have to go from there.
Okay. All right. I like it. Another WWE question, but very much pertaining to you. So Jessica Carr. So as a trainer and mentor for Jessica Carr, who's now breaking ground as a WWE referee, what is your most proud moment about her journey?
The most proud moment I have to say with her is number one, making it to the roster the way she did. She came in as a wrestler. Things didn't work out too well in terms of she wasn't bad. It was just it wasn't what they were looking for. And with that being said, she turned it around. Instead of quitting and packing her bags and going home, she said, "What else can I do?" They offered her a referee's position, and she took it and ran with it. And now she is probably one of the greatest female referees of all time. Still she has a lot of time on her belt to be able to show that, but she's doing phenomenal now. Very proud of her. Very happy that she decided to stick with it and not quit. And not to mention, a wrestler's career maybe 7 to 10 years, 12 years tops, maybe, and that's for
If you're
some
lucky.
if
Hmm.
you're lucky. Um, so now Jessica is a referee, so that can add another 30, 40 years to her career. I mean, hell, even Dave Hebner being 122 years old, still refereeing. Love you, Dave. I mean, not Dave. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. All right. So there's a couple other wrestlers that you kind of had impacts with. This is women's wrestling talk, so we definitely have to talk about the female wrestlers. So you work with talents like such as Lacey Evans, Mercedes, Monet, Alexa Bliss. So can you share any special memories or lessons from those relationships that you've taught them?
Yeah, sure. Oh, by the way, and it wasn't Dave Hebner, it was Earl Hebner. So I get that straight. Unfortunately, rest in peace, Dave passed away. So I just want to get that straight. Some people will listen to the show and be like, Dave on it, asshole. It was Earl, not Dave. So I had to make
Got
that
you.
clear.
Correction, folks.
So correction. So I think one of the greatest thing is I still call her Mercedes. She'll always be Mercedes to me.
Hmm.
Um, WrestleMania 18, when I came back to WWE, I didn't realize how much of a liking she took to me, and I was very surprised. And she started calling me dad. And from that point on, she was calling me dad. I was calling her my daughter. We would tell people that, that was my daughter and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Are we really, is that really my daughter? No, but, we were fond of each other so much. And that's what we told people. WrestleMania 18, when, I'm sorry, not WrestleMania, when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018. I
Hmm.
forget what year that was, but I had met her mom for the first time. And her mom pulled me aside and said, "Thank you so much." And I said, "For what?" She was like, "For taking my daughter and putting her underneath your wing. She really looks up to you, and to a point where she's like, you're like a father figure to her." So when Mercedes told me that, I didn't really buy it.
Hmm.
Not that I didn't buy it, but it was just like, okay, you're exaggerating maybe just a little bit, but okay, whatever. And then when the mom told me, I was just like, wow, okay, she was serious when she was saying all of that to me. I didn't know that I had an influence on somebody of her generation to be able to take to me like that. So it was cool to know that, you know.
Hmm.
Lacey Evans, very, very good friend of mine. She was just at my house about a month ago, her and her husband and her kids. And, we do that. If I'm down there where she is in Carolina, I'll go visit her. And when she comes to Florida, she always comes here. So she's a very, very good friend of mine. We basically do a lot of talking and BSing with each other and, just joking around, just having a good old time with the family and stuff. So, I love her to death. She's a tremendous person. And, I was very happy to one day. There were seats. We were in catering at WWE SmackDown, I think it was, and I was looking for a table to sit down and eat. And there was a couple of people I didn't want to sit down and talk to eat because they talk too much. So I decided not to go over there. And I sit down and I get up to go get a napkin because I know I forgot. Lacey Evans comes and sits down because nobody's at that table.
Hmm.
And so she comes and sits down. I turn around, I look, I go, oh, a newbie. I'm like, oh gosh, a newbie. So I come down and the first thing she goes is, "Hey, Devon, how you doing?" I'm like, "Good. What's going on?" We're talking, BSing around. I got to know her a little bit. She got to know me a little bit. And from that point on, we just became really, really good friends.
Nice. And what about Alexa Bliss?
That's my girl. I got to give her a call. And when I say girl, dirt sheet riders, I don't mean like my woman. I mean, she's a really good friend of mine. Um, I was at her bridal shower.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
sorry, her. Yes, in a bridal shower and everything. Love Ryan, her husband. I think they're just great people. And when we call each other every so often to check up on each other, especially when we don't hear from each other for a while, because time
Hmm.
goes, you're with your family, things like that. It's never why didn't you call me or why hadn't I heard from you. We just pick off right where we left off. We never skipped a beat, you know.
Hmm.
So Alexa is very, very good friend of mine as well. And I wish I would have worked with her more as an agent, but I didn't get the chance to because some of the higher ups in terms of producers got to work with her like that. But I was happy with everybody that I had. Um, you know, Oscar was a pleasure to work with. Very easy. Was able to say one thing to her, she got it, caught on,
Hmm.
boom, and hit a home run
Nice.
with it. So I was able to really bond with a lot of people when I was there as a producer, and I don't think if I was talent, I would have been able to bond with them like that.
Yeah. So circling back to Mercedes Monet, so you had a really great relationship with her. You said that she called you dad. With what she's doing in AEW, and I've seen a couple other interviews, and you've said that you don't necessarily get to see a lot of wrestling. Watching wrestling is like a full-time job now. There's just so much all the
Mhm.
time. But have you been seeing what she's been doing on AEW, and what do you think of it if you have?
Well, I have caught some things, not all, because again, I don't have the time. With my 9,000 kids, you know, I got to give them that time. But no, but the stuff that I saw, I like. I like the fact that she feels comfortable in doing what she did. When she was in WWE, it felt like she felt like she was being held back, and you could see on her face and her reaction that she didn't feel so comfortable, in terms of being in the WWE at the time, where she was able
Hmm.
to let her creative juices flow. Now she's able to do that, and I think she's doing a tremendous job. So my hat goes off to her, and I love her to death.
Do you think there'll be a time that we will see Mercedes, aka Sasha Banks, back in WWE?
There's a strong possibility. Never say never to anybody. You know, never say never to anybody. Um, I feel that, you know, people will leave, people will come back for whatever reason that they leave. It's just your time, you
Hmm.
know. God, and I'm again coming from a preacher's kid, I'm a very biblical person when I say this. God puts you where he needs you to be at a certain time. And he also removes you from that place at a certain time. And sometimes he causes grief and agony because he knows that if he was to be nice about it and tell you to leave, number one, you wouldn't get the message,
Hmm.
you know, and number two, you wouldn't go anywhere because you're in that comfort zone. But if you're forced to get out of it, then you got no other choice. And then you move on to something else, and then you see that the grass not necessarily always green on the other side, but it can become green on the other side. It depends on what you do to make that happen.
And so, I mean, you've seen essentially almost the evolution of women's wrestling from, when you're a wrestler to you being an agent backstage. What are the challenges that you see for female wrestlers, kind of from the time you were wrestling to now, like the differences?
One of the things that I like about today's women, being a woman in today's wrestling, is the fact that they're not used as sex objects,
Hmm.
you know. And if you look at the Attitude Era, that's all it was a lot of women being used as sex objects, and it wasn't right. But that's what WWE did, and that was at the time. That's what it was called for. But now these women are getting respect. They're main eventing WrestleMania. They're main eventing Monday Night Raw. I mean, you can't get any bigger than that, especially, main eventing WrestleMania. Come on. That's usually run by men, not
Hmm.
women. And for that to happen, that's tremendous.
And I mean, we talk about WrestleMania. I know I don't want to pepper you too much with WWE questions, but the Bloodline. What do you think of this whole saga, and where do you think it will end, or do you think it will end?
I'll be honest with you, we're so like the microwave generation now, where we want things quick and fast. Let
Hmm.
that storyline play from A to B to C to D all the way to Z. Take your time with it. No reason to rush. Where you going? Get those creative juices flowing so that way you can keep the storyline interesting and move forward with it, as opposed to stopping it because you ran out of ideas or something like that. The people's mentality nowadays in wrestling is very, very short.
Hmm.
Where before the internet, before all of that, we had to wait anyway. So it wasn't like, we had the heads up on, we can go on the dirt sheet and find out. We had to really wait
To watch it,
and
yeah.
to watch it. And so I feel like that is something that, has changed over the years, and I'm happy for it. It's just, really a good time to be in pro wrestling right now. It really is.
It definitely is. Another thing is a good time to listen to different podcasts. So Devon and the Duke, so that show's on the Duke Loves Wrestling Network. So what inspired you to kind of start this podcast, and what can people, if they haven't listened to it yet, what can people expect to hear?
Well, it started, I was talking with Duke, and I was introduced by a mutual friend, and we did the interview and it went great. He loved it. He said it was great, great reviews and everything. And then there was something else that I wanted to get off my chest. So I said, let me get in touch with Duke. And I called him and got off my chest. And he was like, fantastic job. I love it. He's like, man, we should even like think about getting you your own show. Maybe you and I could do it. And
Hmm.
I was like, I don't know about that. He was like, I think it'd be great and this and that. So I was like, you know what? Okay. So, you know, that was done, and it was kind of like a breath of fresh air because I had a podcast prior to this, which was called Table Talk
Hmm.
with Mo, Lindsay, and Devon. So it was kind of cool to get my feet wet in that aspect, but I was itching to get back in.
And so, how often, like, what's the timeline? Is it weekly, or when does it drop?
Um, it's when you say when does it drop, what do you mean?
Like, how often can people listen to it? Do you guys have new episodes every week, or
Oh, I'm
is
sorry. Yes,
yeah?
yes. We have new episodes every week, and we like to talk about anything, not just pro wrestling, but we try to make it a lot of pro wrestling, but we like to go outside of the box as well.
Hmm.
whether it be the presidential debate, things like that. Listen, I know that's
That
a
was
subject that you don't want to do. That's a little bit too rough. But we get our feet wet in that sometimes, things like that on top of that. But it's just we have fun. I think that's what it is. And Duke and I is becoming very successful. I just love the fact that we're just having fun and that people can see it and play off of it.
okay. So, so you have the academy, you have the podcast, your father, and I mean husband as well, and you have a car detailing business. So, one, when do you have the time? And then two, like, how did this come about?
Well, the wrestling school started in 19. I was going to say 1987. I was in junior high. It started in 2007. Me and Bubba had left WWE to go to Japan, but we needed to get ready because we felt like we were out of shape. So we wanted to find a wrestling school in the area. We found one, and the wrestling school just wasn't good. And that's when we noticed that wrestling schools were hurting bad in terms of good teachers. So we decided to open up the wrestling school, and it had been successful ever since. We only changed locations one time, but still, it really worked out for us, and we're very happy about that. In terms of the detailing business, I have a friend of mine. His name is Noel Seavright, who basically is out of New York, because I'm born and raised in New York,
Hmm.
and he moved down to Florida, and basically called me and said, "Hey, listen, my love for cars and this and that, and how I love cleaning them and things like that. Why don't we do a detailing business?" So I was like, no, well, I don't know anything about cars like that. I know just to buy them and that's it,
Mm.
you know. And he was like, no, I think this will really work and this and that. Thank God I listened to him because it really worked. It really is working, And
Nice.
then just recently, I basically got involved with doing my own brand of cigars. So,
When do you have the time? Like, when do you have the time?
I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of like Vince McMahon and I don't sleep.
Oh,
If you look at my eyes, they're always bloodshot red because I don't get enough sleep.
yeah,
I
most
just
successful
constantly
people
go.
don't.
Yeah, I really don't sleep and I love it. I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. Listen, there's some days where I will take a day off and I'm
Hmm.
bored as hell. I need to be on my phone. I need to be checking. I'm checking everything there is to check. I'm just bored because if I'm not working and doing what I have to do, I don't feel I'm accomplishing
Oh, there you are. You cut out for a second. Um, so for the cigar, so the cigar business, so how did that come about?
I was basically I frequent a cigar bar in Florida here
Hmm.
and got to know the owners very well. They invited me to an opening, a signing with Dave Ortiz from the Boston Red Sox. They call him Big Papi.
Hmm.
And we basically got to talking one day, and he said something about having my own cigar. And I was like, I don't know about that. He's like, no, think about it. You get your own flavor cigar and everything that you like about it. So I was like, okay. And next thing you know, I started talking to Dave about it, Dave Ortiz, and he was like, I think it'd be a great idea if you come along with me. My people will help you and everything. And I was like, okay. And next thing you know, it just took off from there.
Wow, very inspirational. Now, another thing too, we talked about your girls, but you have your sons who are wrestling as well. One, it's kind of hard. I saw an interview where you said that you kind of spoke to The Rock, and The Rock kind of almost kind of gave you the okay to give your sons the okay to start wrestling. It's kind of hard for as kids to take advice from their parents, but you're a Hall of Famer. So do they ask you questions, or what advice have you given them?
No, they do. And they do ask me questions, but I tell them they got to be patient. They had a little stint in AEW and it didn't really go well for them there.
Hmm.
I didn't like their little stint there either. I didn't think they were being used correctly or used at all. Just like so many other talent in that company
Hmm.
that's not being used and correctly. But I just wanted them to get out. I wanted them to go to NXT, try to get their feet wet there, and that's what we're doing right now with them. So it's one of those things where I was happy that they were able to leave that part of their life and their wrestling career and go start a new chapter.
Hmm.
They're doing very, very well. They're on the indies a lot. They are going overseas. They're doing so much. So I'm very proud of them. And every once in a while, they like to bring the old man along with them.
What's that experience like? I mean, you just, not it's not too often that parents get to see their kids essentially do what they did. So
Right.
what is that like, at least actually witnessing it? Like what's the emotion like?
It's overwhelming, especially when you're in there and you see your kid in there and the kids in there, they're doing their thing. Terrence and Terrell, my sons, they are just doing tremendous. And I tell people all the time, they're a lot better than me and Bubba were, I feel. And I think they're natural athletes.
Hmm.
Um, and they're having fun doing it. That's the thing. They're having a lot of fun. So I'm very proud of them. And, I hope they can become as big a stars than me and Bubba were.
And now speaking of Bubba, we had talked about like tag teams, and I've had these conversations all the times. Like I'm always kind of talking about like legitimate tag teams. Like sometimes it frustrates me when you see kind of people they slap two people together, that they're not friends, like, they may start hanging out eventually, but you already know that they're going to break up. So one, can you speak to the longevity of you guys being tag teams? And then two, what do you think like is needed for tag teams like these days? Because it just seems like sometimes it's just an afterthought. Like, oh yeah, we have tag teams, and then they don't have enough people to fill those tag team spots.
Well, I definitely think you got to get along. That's most important.
Hmm.
Some tag teams don't get along and they don't last because of that. I think you definitely got to get along. I think you have to have some type of camaraderie with each other, and you have to be able to also be on the same page. Because if you're on different pages, it'll never work.
Hmm.
Whatever one is lacking in, the other one has to pick up, and vice versa. So I think that's huge when it comes to stuff like that. And it's hard to see today's tag teams, even do just that, get
Hmm.
along or try to be on the same page because one wants to be a WWE superstar and the other wants to be a tag team champion. And then every once in a while it flippers and the other one wants to be a tag team champion and the other one wants to be a WWE superstar. So it all depends on the individual. And again, I just feel that the way tag teams are today, they have to really, really step it up if they ever want to compete for my era.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think almost, correct me if I'm wrong, like, with the New Day, and the New Day is still together technically, but
Right.
it's 10 years. That was 10 years. Like, I mean, you have Usos, but they kind of broke up, but they're brothers, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, it's just that kind of, I think I went on a tangent the other day talking about it's just kind of like the era of, legitimate tag teams. They come out with they have tag team music. They kind of
Mhm.
look similar, stuff like that. It kind of frustrates me when they, it's just clearly not, it didn't seem like there was any thought involved in it. But
Well,
with that
and sometimes that happens. I know that
mhm.
happened a lot in the Vince McMahon era where they would just take two guys they weren't using, but they were still in the contract and then stick them together. We're gonna get what we can out of them, so stick them together and make them a tag team.
Yeah, it's not memorable, but
No,
but so you were behind the scenes as far as WWE for 8 years. What is kind of like one or two things that people may not know as far as how the industry operates? Like for me, I always wish I could be a fly on the wall as far as in the writer's room. Like what's going on? Like how did we get to this point? What's on television? So is there something that you can let us know that like, hey, you guys might not know, but this is how it rolls?
I think a lot of people get frustrated, and they're looking for that answer. It's I don't know. It's a very hard thing to say. I mean, it really is. It's just one of those things where you just got to pray and hope for the best. In terms of your career. That's the only thing you can do nowadays because
Hmm.
this is not what it used to be back in the 80s and 90s and the early millennium. Wrestling has changed, and a lot of people don't see that. So now, you have these shows, that will showcase how to do the things that we do in the ring, which, in my opinion, should have never been done. I think kayfabe should have never been broken. I think it was wrong. I think our business is so special that nobody has to know how we do our magic. We're not asking David Copperfield to show us how you made that elephant disappear, but you want us to
True.
show how to do a body slam. That was that's what I love about the old school, and I mentioned a little bit about that earlier. You didn't do things like that. It was like a secret society.
Hmm.
but it is what it is nowadays.
Okay. So talking a little bit about faith and destiny. So you said God does everything for a reason. So how has your faith guided you through your career in life?
Well, I'm definitely going to say that it has helped me in terms of the injuries. Not worrying about when I get in the ring, am I ever going to make it out unscathed? I might get a bump, a bruise, or what have you, but you know what? I'm still alive and still testifying. So it's one of those things where, you got to look at it for what it's worth.
And then last question before we get out of here, the evolution of wrestling, the Triple H era, not even, but the AEW era,
Mhm.
where TNA is right now, just so many different things have, like where NXT is right now. Where do you see it going? Where do you see it going, or where do you hope it will go?
Well, I hope the wrestling business will go as a whole.
Yeah.
I think with Triple H leading the pack, I think it can go far. I really do. I think that his ideas were needed. And I'm not saying anything bad about Vince, but Vince had been carrying the torch for almost 50 years. And at some point, you get burned out. So you have to be able to have fresh and new ideas. And Hunter brings that to the table. So I think we're going to definitely see that. And I love the fact that he's given those who Vince probably would have never given an opportunity, he gives them an opportunity. Remember, half of the people, about a good 90% of the people, 95% of the people, Hunter created in NXT, which is what you're seeing now. So if anybody knows them, it's him. He knows how to push them. He knows how to make them. So it's all up to the individual at that point once they go from NXT to the main roster. Once you get that chance from Hunter, you got to run with it. So I think as long as Hunter continues to do what he does, the future is very bright for the WWE.
There it is. And with that being said, where can everybody find you? Are there any other businesses that people can tap into? Any other children that you want people to invest into? Just let us know all the information.
Yeah, so you can a lot of my stuff is done on Instagram. So it's Testify Devon on Instagram. And I'm also on Twitter as well. My Facebook is private with just family and friends because I have photos of the kids when they were younger, family activities that I don't want leaked out. So I keep my Facebook private. But the Twitter and the Instagram both are Testify Devon. And of course, on Devon Dudley Academy, a professional wrestling, our wrestling school, which on Instagram is DDA. I tell people all the time, if you're really serious about taking your wrestling career to the next level, then give us a call and we'll be able to get you to that next level. We're 3 minutes away from the Performance Center, and we're making them, shipping them out, taking them, shipping them out.
Boom, there it is. Well, thank you so much, Devon, for joining. I appreciate it. I look forward to all the businesses and all the things that you're doing, and especially your insights. They're very interesting.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
my
that.
No problem. Thanks, guys, for watching. My name is TK Trinidad. You can follow us on everything at Women's Wrestling Talk at www.talkpod.com. You can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. Till next time, guys, thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.